Welcome to NEMCTV6, the Community Focus Program. My name is Terry Kessler, your host, and with me today is Macomb County Executive, Mr. Mark Hackel. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about the new executive-based government in Macomb County versus the commissioner-based government in Macomb County. How is that affected?
No, I think it was a simple idea on behalf of the public to say, you know what, we need leadership, somebody that we can focus attention on, draw attention, and kind of have a vision for the county, which we've never really done before. We've never really understood what we are, what we're about. And by doing so, they created a charter. And within that charter, they created the two branches of government, which once were morphed into the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners. Now they have the executive and legislative, which is the way it should have been many, many years ago.
Okay.
Macomb County is a large county. I mean, for the first time ever in the 2010 census, we are now larger than the city of Detroit by population. And it's never been before in the history of the city of Detroit and the county of Macomb. But we are now larger than the city of Detroit as far as population. It was required, I think, of us to figure out how do we get somebody in a position that becomes the key focal point for the county to create opportunities and to have somebody that's accountable for everything that goes on in county government. So the new form of government created the executive and has now pared down the Board of Commissioners from 26 to 13.
Okay.
And purely their responsibility is legislative, meaning to adopt the budget after it's prepared, to make sure that they believe the appropriations should be made to all county-wide elected officials. Not just the executive, which, by the way, is the smallest portion of the county budget, smaller than even the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
But it's the budget that they prepare is for the clerk, the treasurer, public works, the sheriff's office, and the prosecutor. That's where the bulk of the tax dollars go to provide those services.
Okay.
Those that are under the responsibility of the executive are basically department heads that I'm responsible and accountable for. So the board's new role is basically just to appropriate the funds. And once they're appropriated, those countywide elected officials are there to make sure that they're using the funds appropriately in their spending. And the board can check to make sure they're following those guidelines. But they no longer control the decision-making process of any of the countywide elected officials, including the executive now, who's supposed to be taking on the day-to-day responsibilities of running county government.
So you've had some difficulties implementing this new government. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I call it the will of the people. It's a new constitution, no different than when George Washington took over and they decided, you know what, here's the new constitution for our country. He came into that where there was no challenge because there wasn't a branch of government that had both. So it wasn't as difficult for the president when he first came in. Now what we're having is a situation here where the Board of Commissioners once had the responsibilities of both executive and legislative. And they're having a hard time understanding the role based upon the new constitution or the charter. I fully understood based upon the job description that was in that charter for the executive and wanted to be accountable for that role and that responsibility. And by having them create certain laws that impact the executive responsibility and trying to take some of that responsibility, I cannot do that for two reasons. One is it's the executive's responsibility. I will not shirk responsibility. It's the will of the people that created this document or that charter. And quite honestly, even though we had to have a legal decision made on behalf of one of the courts, it was a very compelling ruling on behalf of Judge Foster, who was very thoughtful in his deliberation and understanding after both sides presented the arguments based upon that charter. And that judge, when he came out, I mean, he couldn't have been more clear in, in his response, saying that is the response of the executive form of government, not the board anymore. It's the will of the people. So much so that he even said in the end that the legal costs associated with this were going to be the board's responsibility because I had to move forward to create this, I guess, legal challenge here. And we clearly understand the charter. We get it. And I think the judge gets it, and many of those that actually put this charter together, but for some reason, I think they're getting advice from a firm that's outside Macomb County, out in Wayne County, that's, I guess, trying to get them to challenge what is happening. And it's a huge waste of taxpayers' money. We just want the will of the people instituted. This judge ruled that it will be instituted, and I want to make sure people understand I want to handle the responsibilities of the executive and want to be held accountable for the decisions and the direction that this county goes in.
So with the redistricting from 26 commissioners to 13 commissioners, can you tell me how that has affected the representation of the population in Macomb County?
It's interesting because most of my direct connection is with the municipalities and the municipal leaders. There's 27 distinct municipalities that make up Macomb County, and I'm constantly in contact with each and every one of those community leaders to try to figure out what's going on, and we're accessible and available to them if they have a problem or issue or concern, no matter what it is. And by doing so, I guess the connection is more of getting, kind of moving the middleman out of the way. We're dealing directly with those that have issues and want to know what's happening. The public, I don't work for the Board of Commissioners, the prosecutor doesn't, the treasurer, the clerk. They work for the people, they work for the public. And so the public has any concerns, whether it's a road issue, whether it's something with the health department, juvenile justice center, the responsibility is the executives. If they have a problem with the way something's handled on a prosecution basis, an inmate at the county jail, that's the prosecutor and or the sheriff's role. So the question becomes, really, what is the role of the Board of Commissioners now? It really has been challenged, and basically because of the new charter, and it pretty much says that their role is strictly limited, very limited, to just dealing with the budget after it's been prepared. I prepare a budget now, they approve the budget, and then those appropriations are given to the countywides to run their organizations within parameters. And if anybody goes outside those parameters, that's the check and balance. That's when somebody comes in and says, hang on, you didn't follow the rules or the guidelines here. You know, somebody's going to be held accountable. And today, we finally have somebody that's accountable here in Macomb County. Nobody can say if a bad decision was made or no direction is given. It's the board, because nobody really knows what or who the board is. It's in that individual.
Okay.
But now it's the county executive, and it happens to be me in this situation. They can now point a finger and say, you needed to handle this. This is your issue. You need to fix it. Or you know what? That's the proper direction we think the county should be going in. So I think it's extremely important that you have leadership within any organization, whether it's in a household, whether it's in a school, whether it's in a business, and when it comes to government. As a sheriff, my role was to run that department. And if there are any problems, people knew exactly who was responsible and accountable for the day-to-day operations of that department. That's how county government needs to be run, especially when you're dealing with taxpayers' money and you know, the services that need to be provided as a result of that.
That sounds like you're really embracing your new role and really have a clear idea of where it is and what it is you want to do.
Well, I believe in accountability, and I always have. And when I signed up for this job, that's the first thing I said. Read it, understand the job description, and own up to it. But you know what, the day-to-day, you know, I guess concerns is to try to restructure county government based upon that charter. To me, that's a very small portion of what we're doing. Most exciting part of what I get to do on a daily basis is this whole understanding in the charter where it says, you're the one now that has to get out there and market Macomb County. And there are so many assets that we have that we've never got to get out there and explain to the public as to why they want to live here, why they would want to live here, and why people should or will invest in Macomb County. There are tremendous assets, and we're doing that right now. We're finally getting people to understand what is our brand, what is the Macomb County brand, what is so special about us, and how do we fit into the region so that we can compete with other regions throughout the world for world resources. We need to be able to do that, and I think we're finally doing that with this new form of government.
Well, we're going to take a break here, and we'll be right back.
In 1990, in Severn, Maryland, the daughter of a clergyman was discovered by a music industry insider while pumping gas at a service station. The odds of her getting signed and spending 11 weeks at #1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of this former church choir singer going on to sell 40 million records? 1 in 15 million. The odds of the same woman winning 6 Grammy Awards and starring in 2 Broadway plays? 1 in 75 million. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Welcome back to the Community Focus Program. I'm here with Mr. Mark Hackel, Macomb County Executive. Welcome back.
Welcome back to the second segment here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the census that just went by and how it has affected the communities of Macomb County. How has northern Macomb County grown, or how has it affected the community?
Terry, it's pretty incredible if you think about it. When we talk about the census data in 2010, when that figures came out, it was incredible what happened to Macomb County. Macomb County was the largest growth county in the entire state of Michigan. Of the 83, Macomb had the most population growth. 53,000 people made a conscious decision to move to Macomb County for whatever reason. It wasn't because of a new major manufacturing plant, a new corporate world headquarters. I think it's because of the value-added proposition, quality of life, affordable housing, although it may have an impact on our property values. There was a direct reason why people came here. And if you think about that number, 53,000 people over a 10-year period, doing the math, that's 14 people a day made a conscious decision to move to Macomb County. It is. And most people would think, well, what about Oakland County? Oakland County was not even close to second place. It wasn't even in the top, I don't believe, top 10. They had 8,000 people move to Oakland County. Kent County was the second largest growth county with approximately half of the population growth Macomb County had. So there's something that's happening in Macomb County, and it's spread out. Most of it was the affordable housing in the south end. People decided to buy or make or develop homes in the north end. We had a very slow period for some time there, but we're starting to see some of that come back right now in Macomb County. There is an interest in people wanting to move in Macomb County and wanting to invest in Macomb County. We're seeing that, and that's good news. Not as good as it was during our heyday, but we're pretty fortunate here in this county to see the growth we're seeing.
So how are the budgets now? I know that there had been some issues with the budget and employees were required to take furlough days and things. How's the budget looking over the next couple of years?
I think public employees sometimes get a bad, I don't want to say rap, I hate that word, but again, I think sometimes people will say some negative things or derogatory things about public employees, and if you look here in Macomb County with just county government, we were able to resolve approximately 19 of the 23 labor contracts or agreements without any question or concern. The people took the concessions, those employees, and hats off to them because they had to take furlough days, they had to take concessions in their health care. They really did step up to the plate to help us balance our budget. When I came into this, my job was to figure out how do we deal with the 2012 budget because I started in 2011. That wasn't the case. We realized there was a budget deficit that was put in place for 2011. So we had to fix the budget. There was a budget gap when we first got in of $13.1 million, and we had to fix that. We fixed it, the board approved it because they had to, and then after that we had to deal with a budget deficit for the following year, which is 2012, but we balanced it with a surplus.
Okay.
Macomb County just went to Chicago, meaning our staff and our finance director, to go look at a bond rating issue. If you think about it, the federal bond rating had gone down, it had been downgraded, City of Detroit with all of its problems, Wayne County with the concerns that they're having. When we went there with our plan, explaining our budgetary process and how we're looking no longer just year by year, but we're looking at projections, not only did they give us a AAA bond rating, which is the highest bond rating you can get from Standard & Poor's, they extended it to 2013. So I like to tell Brooks Patterson in Oakland County when he talks about their county being one of the 3 counties in the state that has a AAA bond rating, I tell him, yeah, but Macomb County has a AAA plus bond rating. Even though there is not such a thing, we have an added year, which is 2013, because of our budgetary practices. So we're in good standing. We do have a budget gap to fill for next year, which is about a $16 million gap that we're working on right now, and we're pretty confident we're going to get to that. But a lot of it had to do with the concessions and the employees that have stepped up, and again, some of the downsizing and consolidation that we're working on.
Can you tell me how Governor Snyder's mandate for health care has affected the county and how the county has dealt with that issue?
Well, I think it forced a lot of the labor groups to the table, and as I mentioned before, there was no hesitation on behalf of the labor groups here in Macomb County. They came forward and willingly accepted those changes to their health care plans. And the 80-20 and caps that they put in place at the state level had a direct impact on the public employees here. But I'm telling you, they came to the table and I just don't say gladly, they readily accepted that challenge and they took it on. So I give them a lot of credit. They are doing more work because there's less people there, so they've got more responsibility. And they have taken some of the concessions, and there was no public debate or controversy over it that anyone heard of here in Macomb County.
There's been a few issues in the news regarding things that are closing, possibly losing people at Selfridge Air National Guard. There's been the closing of the Richmond State Police Post. Can you talk a little bit about that, of how it would affect the budget and possibly police patrols in northern Macomb County?
I listen to people when they talk about the media and reading the papers and listening to the news, and it always seems as though they always want to talk about the 1 or 2 negative things that are occurring. Let's talk about Selfridge. I think that negative thing did drive some of the support that we had seen, Joe, that is from the base council, and support we got from Candace Miller and some of our federal representatives, and even at the local level to try to figure out how do we help save Selfridge. But there's a bigger plan. I mean, saving the F-10s over at the Selfridge and the support there had to happen. I mean, we need to be parochial about that. I have to. I represent Macomb County, and many of those people that work out at Selfridge do a great job, and there is, I guess, a business sense as to why that makes sense, to maintain our guard. But with that, we need to realize that there's things that are happening with the defense industry. Defense industry is a huge portion of what's going on in Macomb County. That corridor down Van Dyke in the city of Warren and Sterling Heights is absolutely incredible economic opportunities for us. But what they're doing is they're finding out that they're running out of space, which is a good thing. And they want to figure out how do we diversify Selfridge Air Base to allow for some of that growth and potential growth to continue. So while we're talking about how do we save the base, we need to figure out how to diversify the base. And that's what we're working on with our federal representatives, local representatives, and even at the state. And the governor's been very supportive of that to try to figure out how do we work on that defense piece here in Macomb County. Because it is the defense capital of the Midwest. But I want to grow that to become the defense capital of the world. And we can do that.
So what are some of the plans for the property along Lake St. Clair, possibly by the base or even further north? Do you have any ideas of something that you'd like to see happen?
We are, and we're working on it right now. What a tremendous asset. Day one, when I got into office, I got a guy from our planning department to refocus all of his attention on specifically the New Blue Economy Initiative. It is not just about our 31.5 miles of coastline on Lake St. Clair, which some say isn't one of the Great Lakes. That may be true. It is a basin, but it is
Great Lake.
It's our Great Lake.
Yes, it is.
It truly is the urban center of the Great Lakes waterway system. Why do I say that? Much like the city of Detroit is the urban center of the metropolitan region, Lake St. Clair is the urban center of the Great Lakes waterway system, meaning there's more fishing, more boating activity, more marinas on Lake St. Clair than any of the others. And that goes for the entire country during the summer months. So we're going to try to continue to grow that, but grow opportunities for people to touch it, to feel it. And we talk about recreational opportunities. That's why a lot of times people want to move to Macomb County. But added to that, the beauty that we have. Most towns or cities would love to have a main street in their town for people to gather, for people to kind of recreate around, but also for economic growth. We have a mainstream main street in Macomb County called the Clinton River. Runs right through the heart of the county. And that is an untapped resource that really is just aching for opportunities with campsites, canoe liveries, and maybe even some camping or park grounds around it for the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, school kids, and even parents that want to take their kids there. We are growing that right now with this New Blue Economy Initiative. I got a Water Resource Advisory Council helping deal with water quality, water access, and water attraction. And there's a lot of interest on behalf of those municipalities that the river runs through, as well as the coastline that these municipalities have as right there in their front door step.
Well, speaking of Lake St. Clair, I understand that the federal funding for the monitoring system for the intakes for the water supply, that the federal funding has dried up. Can you tell me how Macomb County may be participating in maintaining the existing system?
And I think that's another misnomer. The reality was the federal funding came to support the system, and that was a great effort on behalf of all, whether it was the local level, county, state, and federal. The funds that came in to help put that system in place. What failed was somebody didn't follow up on that with the understanding of how do we continue with the funding. That never happened.
Maintenance of the program.
And so it went on for a few years, and nobody was doing anything about corralling the interest of those that were the intake areas and municipalities, and those that were the end users of the water supply. The drinking water comes in from these municipalities. Nobody put a plan together. And so when I got in, all of a sudden it became Macomb County's responsibility for some reason. Well, we did. We worked with our health department, we worked with the Water Resource Advisory Council, and we decided we can figure out how to get these people to understand how important that is, to have that monitoring system sustained. And they have gotten the agreements of many of the municipalities to figure out the funding piece and to continuation of the monitoring system within their jurisdictions. There are a few that are still having a hard time with it. They haven't accepted it. We can't force them to do that. But again, the funding was something that was supposed to be our responsibility at the local level. We didn't do that. We didn't take it on until the 11th hour. That's why I go back to our first question in the first segment about this idea of the new form of government, county executive form of government. Somebody's accountable now to try to figure out how do we make these things happen so it's sustainable. And that's exactly what we're doing on that issue and many others as well.
We're going to take a break here for a moment, and we'll be right back.
I think someone at my friend's school has this thing called autism. My friend's brother's son has autism. My neighbor's son has autism. My son has autism.
Autism is getting closer to home. Today, 1 in 110 children is diagnosed with autism. That's a 600% increase in the last 20 years. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Community Focus with Mr. Mark Hackel. So we talked a little bit about what was going on in northern Macomb, and we were talking about the closing of the police station, the state police. Can you tell me how that has affected patrols in Macomb County?
Well, the state's going through their budgetary cuts, and they have to try to figure out how do they align personnel and what they're doing. And from a law enforcement perspective, when you look at local and county law enforcement agencies, they look for the state police for support at a higher level. And the local municipalities that don't have their own law enforcement agencies want to see that as direct policing, in their streets, in their neighborhoods. That becomes a conflict and becomes a concern because those that are paying taxes that have their own police departments are wondering why is the sheriff to provide that? Why is it the state police responsibility to provide that? So that whole argument comes back and forth, but the reality is many of the budgets are being cut at the county level and the state level. And they're providing services that are, the ones that they have to according to law or standards. Yet I know the sheriff and the state police still want to try to figure out how do they provide some level of service to the northern end. But the more important thing, I think, is what we're working on, and I've been fortunate. We got a circuit judge, chief judge, Dave Viviano, You got Eric Smith, the prosecutor, Tony Wickersham, the new sheriff, and myself that have come together, and we created this a team, I guess, if you will, and we call it Macomb Made Safe. And the acronym itself, M for Mark, A for Anthony, the sheriff, D for David, and E for Eric Smith. Made Safe, meaning we're trying to figure out how do we work on the criminal justice system in here in Macomb County. I envision that what we're trying to create is an opportunity for people to realize here in Macomb County and its jurisdictional boundaries, we want people to feel safe no matter where they live. Whether it's streamlining the criminal justice system so that there is swift and certainty when somebody commits a crime, or how do we come together to try to figure out how do we come up with better ideas or better solutions for law enforcement services provided. How do we deal with some of the problems with kids that are dealing with drugs or bullying? All these issues that are going on in society, we have put together our resources to reach out and figure out how do we involve or engage the community to help with the day-to-day issues in public safety in Macomb County to make it what we believe can be even safer than what it is today.
Now this fall on the ballot, there's going to be an issue for the Detroit Institute of Arts and putting a millage on the ballot for the Macomb County residents to support the DIA. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And people, when it comes to a public official, sometimes get offended if you say you're supportive of it or you try to encourage people to support it. I just want people to think about this. I mean, the importance of Macomb County isn't just Macomb County as an independent silo. It's about a regional aspect, and we are part of a region. When you go out state, you go out of the country, and you start talking about Macomb County, many people don't understand where that's at. But if you say Detroit, people get it.
Okay.
The growth and the opportunities in the city of Detroit are significantly important to Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County. We have to look at it as a regional partner. We have to figure out how do we compete as a region with other regions throughout the world for world resources to get people to want to come here. People like to live in an area because they know they have sports and entertainment venues. There's, Detroit Tigers and the Lions.
Things to see and places to go.
Right. And with that, there are people that do enjoy the arts. People enjoy the zoo, the Cobo Hall. The smart system is the only thing we have really is kind of a regional transportation. And Macomb County does not have an opt-out. Every municipality has joined into that. So most of the voters in Macomb County do support those regional projects, regional issues, because they understand the value it adds to the county, the community, and their property, believe it or not. So we need to be, we need to start thinking about this as more of a regional perspective as opposed to who cares about the city of Detroit. We just leave them. I like the city of Detroit. I like going down there for the reasons I just got through mentioning. And I also recognize the importance of it when it comes to economic opportunities and growth. It can't fail. We don't want our neighbors' yards to be in decay. We want people to keep their neighborhoods, their houses kept.
You don't want to get a black eye because one area has been left.
And that's the same thing with the community. We need to have that same kind of support from our area to help out the city of Detroit and make sure it adds value to Macomb County.
Do you support the possibility of having a casino in Clinton Township?
Well, I know Bob Cannon, the supervisor, does want it, and I know their board does, and they're trying to get their citizenry to support that. No different than any other municipality in the county of Macomb. If there's value added to it in that municipality and they're looking for it, from Macomb County's perspective, we're going to try to figure out how do we support and help them. What people don't recognize is, if that does come, I don't want it to see it as an independent silo, if you will, that people are going to say it's going to bring about economic opportunities and growth within that municipality, and that's all it is. It's got to have quality of life aspects or attractions to go along with it. And if there is, and there is a funding source that comes to the county, my objective would be, if there is money available based upon the taxation that's put in place, how do we save that money and use that money on a yearly basis to create recreational opportunities, quality of life opportunities throughout the entire county? So if it does come to fruition, it is supported, which is a huge challenge, by the way. If it ever does come to reality and they create that, monies that come to Macomb County as a result of the taxes that are imposed upon that facility will be utilized countywide to support quality of life opportunities, which is what I'm excited about. More trails, more parks, more campgrounds. How do we open up access to Lake St. Clair and our rivers? There's a lot of potential for that.
So how do you view the future growth of northern Macomb County? What would you like to see happen in that area?
Again, I don't try to plan for them. I don't envision, I don't, as a county, say this is what I want them to do. That's all we do is create an opportunity to say, you know what Macomb County's got? I mean, the rich assets to Macomb County, whether it's our, what people used to call, the arsenal of democracy, is now the arsenal of innovation. When you talk about that corridor of defense, it's about automotive, advanced manufacturing, and the defense industry. Incredible opportunities there. We talk about our rich assets, meaning our land and water resources. I mean, you couldn't be more pure when they talk about pure Michigan than Macomb County. Talking about that Clinton River and our 31.5 miles of coastline out on Lake St. Clair. But in the northern part of the county, the beauty and the distinct nature of the farmlands, the distinction of having all the, we talk about the orchards out there, some of the golf courses. you know, it's up to them to decide. And if there's recreational opportunities for campsites and campgrounds, boy, we'd weigh in as support on behalf of the county. So they've got to look at it from a visionary perspective. What would they like to see, and what are the opportunities? And the county is there to support that. I can only create a vision for the county based upon the input of those 27 municipalities, and that's why we have the direct impact or direct connection with them, whether it's from me directly or our departments that are trying to support them in any fashion that they're looking for.
So I understand that you have created a new thing in your office called Executive Focus. Can you talk a little bit about what that consists of?
Well, it's a show that we put on too, and it's basically just keep people to know what's going on. I don't bring in the political personalities to talk about politics. I bring in people to talk about what's going on in Macomb County. In other words, we're focused is on Macomb County, the real people of Macomb County, the real issues and things that are happening in Macomb County. We got to get out from underneath the day-to-day blurbs in the paper that are just creating tension and animosities between political people and things that are happening in the communities. We are more importantly creating what's called Make Macomb Your Home. It's a driving website where I want people to see and understand. I want people to be ambassadors. I want them to be proud of why they live in Macomb County. There is a reason why. We want to explain that and highlight that to people so that when they go outside of Macomb County, they're saying, you know what, I'm proud to live in the municipality that I live in, which is a part of Macomb County, and here's why. So when we send our message everywhere, others are going to say, I want to live there too. I didn't know they had all these rich assets. It's coming soon. We've got that website created, and we're going to use that even if we travel outstate or overseas to say, you know what, you need to move to Macomb County. Make Macomb your home for your family or for your business to attract that investment. And well, I tell you, if people get a chance, just go to our Facebook. They can go to my Facebook or MacombCountyMI.gov. Take a look at the video that we put out there. One is Momentum, and the other one is the Make Macomb Your Home video. When you see that, it's just a 30-second video. You're going to be amazed that, you know, looking at that going, wow, I live there, because we've never got that message out. And that's the marketing strategy that I put forward as a county executive. Understand what you're about, brand it, and then get out there and market it. We've never done that before as a county. We are a business. We're a company, believe it or not. And people need to know what our brand is.
Well, since the communities are all in charge, obviously, of themselves, and you said that you're just looking to improve them, how is it that the Macomb County Executive Office is going to help the communities grow?
Well, again, when you say help them grow, that's...
I mean, are you offering them financial opportunities or...
That's usually at the local level and or the state level. There's certain things the county can do to support those initiatives. I mean, our Planning Economic Development Department is available and accessible, you know, during the day hours that any municipality would like their support or their services. It's up to a company that's looking to invest or looking to locate. We have connections with those municipalities. County or municipalities need to figure out how do they allow for those investments to come their way. There are some that just are not as user-friendly when it comes to business, to want those things to happen. Sometimes there's pushback from people within the community because they want to stay, you know, to be what they've always been. And then the legal or the political personalities, you know, don't want to challenge that. So I can't challenge it if a municipality or the people within that municipality don't want to provide those opportunities for investment. It's got to be up to them. But the county will be there gladly, holding their hands, supporting them, walking them through it, if and when we see some opportunities. And we bring those opportunities their way as well when we hear about it as we travel around and say, hey, they're looking to locate, they're looking for a building, they're looking for property. How would this fit into your municipality? So
the county is more or less offering its resources of personnel and the experience that they have in that area to help the communities develop.
Yes, and extremely accessible in that regard as well.
Okay. Well, it's been very nice having you here. It's gone very quickly, and I'm sure the people will enjoy hearing what's going on in Macomb County.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the NEMCTV6 Community Focus Program. Hope to see you again.